We'll call the work order to order the work session on the Fairbanks Street project. We'll begin by going around with introductions.
Amy DeBoski.
Bernie Hall.
Adam Charles.
Ken Stan.
Paul Holman. Chris Birch. George McCalis. Ron Thompson.
Very good. Mr. Kalis, your meeting.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hall, I'm online still.
Thank you, Mr. Trini. How about you, Ms. Johnston?
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman Hall. The administration had requested a work session on this particular purchase so that we could explain, before it came up to you for a decision. And there was good reason for that, and I've got a presentation prepared for you. And the presentation will be given by Alan and also from Tammy. And I think when we're done, I think most of your questions will be answered, but if they aren't, we'll be glad to answer any remaining questions. So with that, we'll go ahead and start.
So this ordinance authorizes the acquisition of the real property or co-location of the municipal tire shop and the light duty shop. The property actually consists of two parcels containing a shop and storage yard. There's a picture of our current Fleet Services tire shop. Interior of the shop.
And that's one section of that whole building. That's all we're looking at right there.
Yeah, we're currently leasing one section of it, and there's two other sections.
This is the storage yard. We use it for staging vehicles, for upfitting APD vehicles, also vehicles going to auction, wreck vehicles, that type of thing, to give us more space at the Fairbanks Street. Currently, we're waiting 68 new APD vehicles, and so you can see it takes quite a bit of space to store that many vehicles coming and going throughout the system.
The purchase price, we had a third-party appraisal valued at $2.2 million, and the municipal assessor's value came in at $2.185, and purchase price is $2.3. The owner has received multiple offers, therefore the administration considers it cost-effective to pay $100,000 over the appraised value in order to retain the site for use as a light-duty shop and storage yard. Should the municipality not purchase the site and it is sold to another party, the cost for researching and relocating a new site would significantly exceed $100,000.
One thing to note, when we moved into this facility 7 years ago, I believe it was, that we had to upgrade the sprinkler system at a cost between the upgrading the sprinkler systems and other tenant upgrades required was over $200,000 that we put in as a tenant upgrade.
Sure.
Mr. Holman just made a comment, and I didn't know this, but you said you've been at this current location for 7 years. Prior to that, you were at the People Mover shop,
Correct.
and we're not allowed to go back there.
No.
Thank you.
Federal rules.
The financing of the warehouse and the storage yard is proposed as a $600,000 contribution from the funds that had been set aside from the 2000 sale of the Fairbanks Street shop, and a $1.7 million, $20 million intergovernment fund from the Heritage Land Bank at the interest rate equal to the general cash pool return plus 1/2 of 0.5%. The proposed interest rate compares favorably to the anticipated market rate. If this project were to be financed with tax-exempt bonds, today's likely market rate would be averaged about 3.4%. The interfund loan interest rate during the first years are forecasted to be less than 2%. The interfund loan is a financial alternative that is economical and efficient for the municipality to use and administer, particularly for a relatively small loan. Owning versus leasing, savings of the entire shop, projected 20-year lease payments are $4.5 million. Projected 20-year down payment, loan payments, and a roof replacement is $3.6. which gives us a net present value over the 20-year payment of $900,000. Question that's been asked is, what about the tax revenue loss over 20 years? And net present value is estimated around $500,000. However, the municipality may likely lose that tax revenue anyways. The competing offer is also a tax exempt entity. There are currently 2 other tenants in there, and this is what they're paying. Those 2 tenants' leases expire June of 2014. And as we stage the municipal use into the building, we will continue to receive revenues from those other tenants.
Chairman, quick question. So are we saying we're going to purchase the entire building and then the entire building would be intended to be used by the municipality?
Yes.
The entire building eventually?
Mr. Birch?
Do you have offsetting savings then from other, if you're moving somebody in there, I mean, does that displace some expenditures you have elsewhere?
We'll get to that. It's efficiencies in the operations, moving the light-duty operation from Bering Street over there, which will free up more efficiencies for the heavy-duty efficiencies at Bering Street. Is that
And then,
what you're asking?
and then, I think the other thing that, and you'll see this later on, and if you don't, we certainly will point it out. And that is, if you look at what we're paying monthly rates right now for something that we don't own, we'd be paying the same for something that we do own. And at the end of the payment period, we own it completely. So,
And this screen actually includes, the 20-year lease payment as if we were leasing the entire building, or if we were owning the entire building.
And I guess just as kind of an overarching question is I have the Alaska Tire Service changes out my car tires twice a year. Have you looked at, I hesitate to use the word privatizing, but I mean, there are plenty of outfits in town that do, tire work and light duty. I mean, have you had an opportunity to kind of look at that and see whether it's reasonable or an option?
In the mid-'80s, I believe they did contract out tire changeovers, and it ended up being more costly than doing it in-house. One of the reasons is we store about 3,700 tires, so you're going to pay to store them tires regardless. And then we have the issues that we'll get to in a lot of slides that talk about, especially APD, the convenience of having in-house operation where they don't have to change everything. So we'll explain that here in just a minute.
Thank you.
Property value, currently $2.3 million, and I'm sorry, but I worked on this backwards and frontwards, and I just decided that the projection of the future real estate values would just bring up a big debate, so everybody has their own crystal balls. But if you look at history, real estate never goes to a zero balance. We'll always have equity there of some sort.
This is where the current shops are. APD is our primary customer. And then Bering Street is located there on Tudor, and the Fairbanks tire shop is about half a block off of Tudor Road right behind the Alaska Club. So it's very efficient for our primary user and to our main function at Bering Street. These are our overall benefits. It's just combining the tire shop and light duty shop at one location. It increases our operational space by taking over the tenant space by 8,500 square feet. It gives us the capability to add, 2 additional light duty lifts, which gives us more capability. And by doing that, moving the light duty to Fairbanks Street, we would be able to gain the existing building at Bering Street and would gain 3 heavy-duty bays, which are critical to our operation. Reduced inspection and parts delivery time. What happens, you get things up on the lift, you got to take it apart, then you order parts. It gives us more capability, and it just removes a lot of the congestion at Bering Street for improved safety. These are the benefits I talked about. 2 additional lifts, 40% increased overall lift capacity. It gives us the ability to meet our PBR goals. We're really scratching the surface trying to meet our APD goals because of just congestion, space, ability. So this will help us meet our goals by having the additional lifts. Then all of our tires and equipment for light duty and the vehicle storage, which is the primary use of the light duty, would all be in one location right next door to each other. Here's the APD tire changeover benefits. Of our roughly 900 vehicles that are light duty, 700 light duty, 468 are APD. This owning the shop gives us the capability. We pre-mount about 400 tires to expedite our changeovers, but we try to keep our appointment times to less than 30 minutes or less, and that way the APD officers have a quick turnaround. They don't need to leave the vehicle. They don't have to go get a spare vehicle, offload all their gear, guns and ammo, remove the computers, all those things. It gives us the flexibility. If we have a freak storm in the spring, I have the ability to just drop what I'm doing and move maintenance, reprioritize, and sometimes we have to add snow tires at the last minute for a freak storm so they can get up the hillside. It'd be a secure site, and then we'd have background checks in place for our municipal employees. They're all pluses for APD.
Adam, Mr. Trombley and Ms. Dombrowski have a
So you
question.
projected your costs out to 20 years. What's our population growth supposed to do within the next 20 years? How many more officers do you think we're going to need in the next 20 years? Are we going to need to expand this building over time? How many employees are we projected to have over 20 years in order to do this, to meet the demand of the increase? And on top of that, going back to what Mr. Birch said, Johnson Tire Service now has a program where they can store your tires for you. Have you looked at see what the cost would be from Johnson's in order to store those tires without having to build their own facility, operation, maintenance, employees, benefit costs, retirement? Have you run those analyses?
We've looked at some of it, and we've talked to,
Have
nobody
you
wants to
looked
give
at all of it?
nobody wants to give you a number until you give them an RFP or something where they're really gonna spend a detailed analysis. As far as the number of officers, I can't speak to that, but this shop does give us some room for increased
How
capacity.
much growth?
We could probably 15-20% as far as the light duty shop. One of the reasons we were interested in this location to start with is if we take on some other entities such as the port or Merrill Field that have smaller fleets, that we would be able to handle that workload by doing this.
So you haven't talked to Johnson's about their tire storage program, what their cost would be for 3,700 tires and putting it, you haven't run any cost analysis on RFP, what the private sector could do it, other than the example you'll probably give us in the 80s, which was 30 years ago?
No, we have talked to them. They said basically dollar for dollar, the storage is gonna be about the same. We're gonna store the same square footage as required for the same amount of tires. They wouldn't give me a detailed number or a detailed analysis, just a conversation, because the square footage lease rate is very similar, whether you own the building or whether you lease it is very similar. The big cost that you run into is once you start putting a lot of tires in one location, is the cost of sprinkler and meet the code requirements.
Remember too, the tires is a small portion. It's a couple times a year. It's the maintenance of the vehicles that matters, and more so, I mean, we're putting vehicles back on the street that have a lot more different issues than just changing studded tires for snow to regular tires.
I understand that.
And we have not just tire changers, we have people that are doing, that jump over and can go do the tire change and then go back to doing maintenance. So they're, we go up and down based upon those things. So the efficiencies that are involved are being able to do more. People do more, they're not just tire changers, they're tire changers, they're mechanics, they're parts runners, they do, all of the categories tie together and really work together.
I understand that. I guess what I don't understand is that how is it that it's more beneficial to bring it in-house and to pay somebody the benefit package, the retirement, the wages, when you can privatize
Let me see if I can answer this. There's several categories that we need to look at here. One category is that we run a 24-hour operation as far as police, fire, and everybody else.
Yes.
They're on shifts. So you have a couple of choices. The choice is, you want to bring a police officer on and for the minimum of 4 hours to sit around and have his own car tire changed, okay? Or you want to minimize that period of time on the overtime. The other thing is, where we own it and we run it, we can operate in extended hours to get all these police cars in for those rotation of the tires.
So you've already made the analysis that only a police officer can drive on duty over to get his tires changed?
No, I haven't made that analysis at all, but what I'm saying is, if he's off duty, you're gonna pay him. And so
My question is, George, why does a police officer have to drive the police car over?
because each police car is assigned to an officer. That car is his responsibility, that's by contract. So, we do it during the day, we minimize the period of time that they're off the road, 30 minutes, they're out and they're running. We've been doing that. The real issue here is not the tire shop. The real issue is, and if you remember, way back when we had the CH2 Hill report that looked into different aspects of operations within the municipality, one of the things they looked at was fleet maintenance. They did not recommend that it be outsourced. What they recommended was that they have a very, very good operation. In fact, they gave them kudos for their operation, but they said they're operating in an unsafe environment because you've got all of these vehicles, the small, the medium, and the large, confined to a very, very small maintenance shop. It is inefficient and it is dangerous because they're having to move vehicles around and jog them around, and they can't fully utilize the space. They are not able to utilize the space effectively because there's not enough space to do the maintenance. By separating the light vehicle maintenance out into this new facility, then you've taken care of that problem and you're more efficient. The other thing is, remember, the school district has asked us if we could take over their fleet maintenance. They've asked us several times. The biggest reason that we haven't been able to do it is that we were maxed out in the facility that we were. We couldn't take anything more. This broadens our opportunity to perhaps do that if the school district, number one, is still interested. And number two, remember, they have an awful lot of vehicles too. And we have more of a chance of doing it with this configuration than we do anything else.
Well, based on that analysis, I don't know why we ever put anything out to RFP in private sector. You know, we should bring every single thing in-house.
Mr. Trumbull, I want to
Sure.
Ms. Dembowski.
Actually, Mr. Michaelis and Ron started to touch on some of my questions. What I was asking about with, if you could go back to the last slide there, Al. When we're talking about, you know, I know everybody's focusing on possibly outsourcing tire changeovers and whatnot, but it appears to me the largest user is APD.
That's correct.
That's correct. And operationally, this location is literally across the street from APD, right?
No, it's down the street, but it's right on the Tudor corridor, so it's easy to get there.
It's pretty close. Okay, so right now what you're saying is because of the system that's set up, in about 30 minutes it takes to get these tires changed or whatnot. Now, tell me, if tire changeover does get outsourced, operationally, from an APD perspective, I know there's guns and ammo and all this different stuff in their cars. Would we gain efficiencies by doing that, or are we just going to increase costs somewhere else? I mean,
I think the chief's here, he would have to speak to that.
You know, I think there is opportunities to outsource things within the municipality. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Trombley, but 20 years with the department, I don't believe tire changeover is going to be one of them. I have no idea how we would operationally get vehicles from officers at their homes in the middle of their night to, I'm going to have somebody do it. Go pick up the car, run it over there, get it. They're going to have to empty out shotguns, all sorts of SWAT equipment, all sorts of UI gear. I mean, operationally, it would impact us negatively if we wind up outsourcing tire changeover.
Okay.
and just
Yeah,
to,
I got it.
just
Let's
to-
follow up on that.
Thank you. Okay, so that's one aspect that, you know, I'm concerned about. Now, the other thing that we were talking about, the unsafe work environment for shop, and that has
If we
been.
could go through these slides, we'll show that.
Okay, I'll hold the rest of my questions.
Mr. Stark.
Well, I'm going to bring educational experience to the model, not 400 vehicles or whatever, but I ran a 24/7 overnight delivery parcel business that required us to be there for that delivery, whether it be medicines or overnight deliveries, 6 days a week, with a fairly large fleet. Tire changeovers were important, and other stuff. I outsourced every bit of it, with the exception of airing up low tires in my barn. We relied on Goodyear Commercial, and they are in the business only for that. They're very, very good at it. You show a tire rack picture in here, I had one just like it, plenty. My location wasn't in my building, it was at their building. They came to where we were, They came to me if I was on the upper hillside and I had a flat. They came to my barn and changed my tires because I gave them a list. They brought me my tires. Oftentimes they could call up and they're loading up their truck going, hey, that number 4 right rear is a little bit thin on tread. All right, then go ahead and swap it with unit number such and such, or buy new, mounted, ready to go. Boom, one service call, fleet discount pricing on tires, consolidated purchasing. You know, we have to start to lift the lid on that. We've talked about managed competition, then let's manage it. How much would it cost Goodyear Commercial to come out and do that? You gain a ton of stuff. You gain off-site. I've seen cars and vehicles being towed back to the shop with a flat tire. They can go out there and fix them, guys. Half of our fleet is parked for half of the day. I know where they're parked. Go out to Chugiak Senior Center and look at that. They're not allowed to take them outside the municipality. Go to my SRO that lives a mile from me. It's parked all weekend. Goodyear will show up there, and 20 minutes later, those tires are changed over. The record of the old ones coming off is there, washed, bagged, and put up in their rack. It works. It works great. And so, yes, you have the emergency demands, but how are we handling the fleet vehicle request that breaks down on the road? He hits a road debris, blows out his front right in pursuit. How do we fix that?
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
So I think it's a spirited discussion, but what hasn't been brought to the table, and then I'll yield for the day, is that hasn't been brought to the table the alternative. And you can say outsourcing won't work for these various reasons, but our fleet sits still. And that's the primary thing. My fleet hardly ever stood still, and I pulled it off. So all things said, you know, granted, a 45 fleet investment, I still had well under, you know, 300 or 400 snows and 400 or 500 of other inventory. You're talking 800 tires. It's a lot.
The issue is, again, we're looking for expanded capability to take care of maintenance. That's the issue. We're paying right now for a facility that we don't own. If we own it, we'll be paying the same or a little bit less than what we're paying today, and we will own it. We have to have the expanded capability because now that we're aware of the fact that we've got safety issues down there, number one. And number two, regardless of whether it's the police or whoever it is, we still have other vehicles that are on 24-hour operation and rotation. For example, our heavy equipment, our road graders, our dumps, our plows. I mean, those vehicles also need maintenance. So the tire shop is an issue, but the overall issue is maintenance and being able to do it efficiently and, more importantly, safely. And that's why we need the expanded facility.
Let's move through the presentation and we'll wrap up.
This is pretty, this is just trips to the shop. I'm gonna go through these
Are
real
we
quick.
set till 12:30? Excuse me.
We are, but work sessions, we can.
Then I move we extend it to finish the presentation.
Yeah.
I'll go through these last few slides quick. The next slide. This shows that over a 5-year period, we believe there's roughly a $240,000 operational saving, just people not running around, standing by. That was right off of our work orders and what we pulled out of the computer. Next slide. As we said, our 2002 Transportation Consultants Inc. and our 2012 both said our shops are identified lack of space and overcrowding issues. Maintenance industry standards, 44% of all injuries are contact with an object. Whether it's an accident, you're going in the shop, you're hitting something, and this is all caused, a big portion of that's caused by overcrowding and lack of space. Next slide. Industry standard, and this is right off the CH2M Hill study, is 1.5 bays per technician. Our light shop, basically we have 0.38. If we're able to move to the tire shop, it gives us a 0.63 per technician. And what it does, it reduces the wait time of vehicles when they're being inspected, getting parts. It allows us to be more productive getting things back on the street. These are the safety issues we have at Bering Street. The parking lot overcrowding, insufficient staging, exterior work due to lack of bays, employee parking, and again, the study shows that. This shows this is pretty normal operations in the summertime. These were taken this fall. This is the employee parking lot to the left. We have to use it to stage equipment for pickup and stuff because there's not enough space. Again, it's just another shot of the yard. It's a very crowded space when you're moving heavy equipment. The safety benefits, we would, by moving to the tire shop and co-locating the light duties, reduction in overcrowding. On the heavy shop, what we would do is take the existing light duty shop. It would allow us to gain 3 bays at the heavy shop, which are needed. What happens with a lot of heavy stuff, you get it up, take it apart, and you're waiting 2 days for parts, you can't move it. So that's critical to our operation. It helps reduce the potential for accidents and injuries, and overall reduction in worker comp claims. We had a workers' comp claim last fall, because of a sweeper body fell on one of our workers and pinched his shoulder. One of the reasons is that we can't lift the sweepers all the way up in the current facility. If we are able to move that operation of light duty, we'll be able to do that. That's not the only reason, but it's a big factor. He was not able to lift it all the way up and put the factory stop blocks in. Again, industry standards, currently we have 11 bays. If we can move the light shop co-locate, it gives us 14 bays. That goes from 0.74 to 0.94 bays per technician. Again, reduce wait time, increase productivity, and that helps with our PBRs. Tire shop and light duty co-location, it just increases operational space by 8,500 overall feet for the whole fleet operation. Gives us 2 additional lifts in the light duty. It helps to reduce inspection and parts delivery time. It gives us some safety enhancements by reducing some of the overcrowding, and we believe it's going to save the taxpayers money.
Mr. Trump?
Going back to what you said and kind of following up on what George said, right now we have to pay a guy minimum, by contract, minimum 4 hours for any work that he goes out and does as a police officer. Currently, what is the setup? Because it says they reduce the wait time for police officers to 30 minutes. So if we reduce the wait time to 30 minutes, my assumption is that they're already having their tires changed over on duty. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's really no savings, because even if he's out there, it's still a 30-minute wait. We're still paying a minimum of 4 hours. So is there really a budget savings there?
Well, where the savings is, he's on the street as opposed to in the shop. So, and if we were to, the example I was making is that if we didn't do it.
Intangible savings?
It's not cash savings, it's efficiency.
It's efficiency savings.
Okay, how many people have been hurt at the current location since it's been there?
You mean the tire shop?
Yeah, the tire. The example you just gave.
That was the heavy
okay.
shop.
Oh,
That was
okay.
in our heavy shop.
Okay, we want to buy a new area. How many people have been hurt currently?
I mean, to come up with that number, I mean, we can go into that number, but obviously in those type of
Is it
environments,
10,
it's a
15,
heavy
20?
injury type
I mean,
of.
there's injuries there,
all the
you
time.
know, a lot of times.
How many of them are due to lack of space?
A lot of them, because,
How many? 5? In the entire year, I mean, 10?
Well, it's also equipment damage because of space. I mean, we have, it's very tight.
you're working in a crowded area, so, you know, you're just spending a lot of money, and the incidents that happen are usually people are bumping into stuff. We've had an individual trip over a piece of equipment because there's just no room in the shop. So it doesn't give us the
You remember
required
that
safety space.
Bering Street's been there and for a really, really long
Yeah,
time.
if I put a factory
And the
truck-
same exact maintenance has now doubled and quadrupled the number of vehicles since when that was first used. So I mean, it's just we've went well past the capability of that facility to handle all of our heavy equipment and light equipment. And on any given day, if you just want to come over there and take a look and walk through, you're gonna see, wow, there's an enormous amount of work done in a small amount of space, and you can see every day watching, I mean, the extra precautions taken to try to prevent those injuries, to prevent those accidents. But it's just one of those things that makes everything less efficient, because you're trying harder and harder not to hit things and not to do those things. Therefore, less space means more time to do everything. More space means you have a little bit more flexibility to be able to do things and move them, make things happen quicker and faster, which gets vehicles, as our PBRs state, back on the road. We need these vehicles out on the street. We've been making departments turn in all their vehicles to try to get the fleet smaller. Therefore, they need to be on the street more often. And therefore, I mean, you need more space to make that happen. If you don't, our numbers are gonna get worse. The number of vehicles on the road are worse. More are sitting there waiting to get work done, which everything compounds. And that's the big nature here, is they need more space to get the job done, because we have less vehicles in our fleet. And when we have less vehicles, more have to be on the street at the time. And so that's kind of really a big, in a nutshell, what's going on.
And And I can get with Risk and pull the reports over the injuries from the last 5 years. I can do that.
Mayor?
Yeah, and just, you know, we throw around the term contracting out pretty liberally. These are union employees who have contracts, mostly IBEW. Their contract is still live and in action, and absent AO 37. We don't have the means to contract out. It sounds good, but we just don't have the ability to do it.
One of the other things we've done in our budget cuts and efficiencies, we used to have several seasonal employees to do this. We found that was so problematic that those positions are gone, and we do it with all in-house personnel at no extra. We're not having to hire any extra people to do that.
Mr. Horniman?
Well, I've been around this system for a number of years. A lot of you guys know that I work in the city, and with transit, we did have ability to contract. We did contract with Big O's Automotive, I'm sorry, Warren's, no, Big O's Automotive and Dean's Automotive. And we found that we were waiting for vehicles more than we were getting vehicles available if we went to Bering Street. The price was the same. They might have saved a few bucks on a tire, but they made it up in the labor rates for the cost. So, you know, you can talk about efficiencies and the intangibles and things of that nature, and notwithstanding the conversation about whether the contract allows subcontracting or not, you know, folks, you're gonna pay for it. You can't get something for nothing. It's just, I've never found a place where you can. So the building that they're using now, they're leasing. Ironically, for the background, just so you know about the federal dollars that bought the transit building that they were using prior, which was a prohibition anyway. We got kind of bought by and squeaked by for a number of years till they caught us, and we had to unask that building. But frankly, we owned Bering Street. Many years back, going back, we owned it. The municipality did. And we decided under a previous administration to sell it for some reason and then lease the property back. But at the same time, we ended up taking out where the jail is now. There was a big public works facility there for heavy equipment. Well, that heavy equipment, when it's not running, when it's sometimes not running, has to be parked somewhere. And where do they have it? Because there's no replacement for that building up front, that lot up front, which was a big piece of parcel, by the way. So we put ourselves in this situation. We need to figure a way out. And frankly, we're going to pay for it, whether we own it or whether we lease it or contract it out. So it's the same money. Do we want the money over? That's a philosophical debate, whether we want to contract it out and let a private entity do it, or whether somebody gets paid a rate and perhaps gets insurance, and oh my God, they might have a retirement at the end of the day. That's a philosophical debate, folks. We need to figure out how to fix the problem we have, and that's what I'm here for, so thanks.
Mr. Birch?
I just want to say it was a great briefing. Thank you very much. It's very helpful and provided a lot of background. I support this. I mean, I think it's kind of a no-brainer when you look at the numbers and sort it out, irrespective of some of the other collateral issues. But I appreciate you taking the time to give us.
If anybody has any questions, you can call me directly. Or if you want to tour the facilities, I'd be glad to show you the facilities.
Mr. Steele?
And you're separating light and heavy, which gives you a lot more safety.
A lot more safety and flexibility for operations.
Could you give me the square footage of the building and the amount, the actual land mass?
The new facility.
How many square feet are in the
16,000.
building and how large the combined lots are? If you don't have it, just give it to me.
I can give it to you.
Thanks.
It's a little over 60.
I think we're done. Everybody's leaving.